welcome back to the show. Once again, I'm your host, Sully, and I have Fighting Owl production coordinator, creator, and filmmaker Thomas Smith on the show tonight. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I cannot complain. I'm glad to talk with another indie filmmaker.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Alrighty. So, once again, you've been going at this hard since round 07, and you've been just back and forth, just working with so many different formulas, and you made so many different cult horror films. I actually have a copy of The Night Shift as we speak.
Oh, thank you. That's nice to hear.
And so, what first got your creative juices flowing? Where you were just like, you fell into it unintentionally, or you always wanted to do this?
A bit of both. As a kid, I always liked. I got very imaginative playing with my toys.
The best thing.
And Power Rangers and all that, and I ended up realizing at some point they would all have their very complex storylines, and if I didn't like the way something happened, I would basically call cut on myself, restage the whole thing, and redo it until I got it right.
A movie god.
Yeah, and whenever I was down on the floor playing, I would kind of look at things from camera perspective. So like you'd have your over the shoulder and like right behind the Red Ranger, so he's kind of out of focus, and the other characters are out in the floor in the distance. And so that's kind of the start of that. And then as I think kind of progressed, I think a high school English class or a literature class, I think it was, did a lot of writing, and that kind of opened up that doorway to writing and trying to get my own stories told in different creative ways. Everything was kind of short form. And one assignment we had was to like write a Beowulf type story, and it was only supposed to be a few pages. It ended up turning in like an 80-page epic, and that my poor English teacher had to read and grade, and everyone else has got like 5 or 10 page whatever.
I gave you what you asked.
Yeah, it's like, here is a novella here. And so all that kind of and I always had like a real love of movies, so it all kind of came together in college when I went on with the university's TV station, campus TV station, and started working for the news, their news program. And then with that comes basically free reign to all the equipment. Editing suites, cameras, tripods. We had basically whatever
was
we needed. University of South Alabama.
Okay.
And so they would, kind of encourage you to go out and, make some short programming for the channel. And that kind of got my juices flowing, and it was just goofing around, making really crappy, just college-y stuff, And so after that, I started writing scripts and trying to be like, I want to make a movie. And after a while, I kind of got tired of trying to find other people to make the scripts, and decided, I'm just going to have to do this myself. So Erin and I kind of partnered up on that, and that's what we've been doing ever since. But it's kind of a long-winded answer, but it's I remember very, very vividly playing, with Red Ranger and Captain Kirk and all that. And I didn't like the way I did the storyline, so I'm going to go back and redo it. And, I don't know. I've never met another child who's like done that. I don't think.
I play around with my action figures all the time. Yeah. But I know what you mean. I mean, so you were creating, in a way, kind of your own interactive video game instead of actually playing a video game and creating your own character. You're like, I want a focus and control on everything and how it plays out.
Yep. And there was always a continuity. I remember I'd like pick up the next day or the next week, and I'd have to, keep the continuity in place for, whatever I was doing then. I can't tell you how mmany times someone died and came back to life and it became people, it's just
my own distorted nightmare fuel
stuff. Yeah. So, but yeah, that was fun. That was a fun time,
You're surrounded by a bunch of movie buffs, friends, family.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the generation 90s kids, late 80s, 90s kids, it was everywhere at that time. Video stores were everywhere. you could go into the local grocery store and rent, video games and movies for 99
Little known
cents or
fact,
something.
everyone forgets that.
Yeah, and everyone always, Laserdisc was coming out, and everyone was just getting like all the cable channels. So on the playground, they'd be like, "Hey, did you guys see Psycho 4 on Showtime last night?" I'm like, "No."
Maybe. What do I win if I say yes?
Yeah, so stuff like that. And so as you get older, that you kind of seek out those people that have a similar mindset. So I've always kind of surrounded myself with those folks.
Nice. What were some of your favorite movies, filmmakers, even characters?
Jaws is like Jaws, and I kind of tied with Jaws and Raiders, but Jaws is probably like my favorite movie because the shark stuff's great and it still freaks me out now, but I just love the characters in that movie. They don't have to be as fleshed out and as human and as natural as they are, but they are perfect. It's like I watched that movie for Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss, not necessarily the shark. I love the character interactions in that. So that to me is kind of like what a lot of modern movies are missing, is that extra bit of heart. So I love Jaws. Some of my favorite horror movies, though, be like Trick or Treat and Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. I love something that can, have fun with itself, have a bit of a sense of humor, doesn't take itself too seriously. Something like Cabin in the Woods. And then filmmakers, I'm always interested to check out anything Ty West does. Yeah. Brian Fuller, like Pushing Daisies, was fantastic.
Created his own metaverse.
Yeah. His Hannibal was fantastic. So yeah, it's constantly in flux, and there's the kind of the typical film person, like, oh, Wes Anderson. I like Wes Anderson, but he's not like someone I get excited about, I guess.
No,
but there are certain folks that yeah, I'm like, if I see their name attached like Ty West, I'm like, I'm gonna check that out. So yeah.
Nice. And altogether, you kind of came in at the right time where Blu-ray was just about to become a thing, mm-hmm. and internet wasn't as toxic as it is now, and people were just having to realize all kinds of different ways. It's like, okay, you can make an indie film, but it doesn't have to be Sundance, and then it can be micro budget, it can be big indie budget, it mm-hmm. can be, but obviously, it doesn't have to be Christopher Nolan to be good either. It can be as large scale as you want it to be, and you just got to follow whatever rules mm-hmm. trade.
Yeah, I tell you, over the past I guess let's just say 20 years, it's changed so much. I remember when YouTube first came out, you're limited to 10 minutes and I think 100 megabytes.
Yeah,
and you're
very picky.
So you were very limited, and now you can just put a whole movie up or live stream something for 24 or 48 hours, whatever.
They had to adapt their clouds somewhere along the way.
Yeah. But so VOD and all that, it's all so complicated now.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think people are still trying to figure that one out.
What are some trends that you've kind of noticed in terms of marketing your movies? Because it seems like I will see some guys, if it's on Bloody Disgusting, they will instantly check it out, and then there's others they'll just be unable to tell a movie apart from the various other Redbox or Netflix titles, and it's like, well, come on, you're sounding snobby, guys. It doesn't have to be Evil Dead to be great. It can be its own original vision.
Yeah. I kind of rely on a lot of the bloggers and websites to kind of help get the word out. Stuff like Bloody Disgusting, or there are a few other places that I kind of continually rely on. Even like Ben Nagy at the Joe Bob Briggs blog. Kind of check out his reviews whenever he does them and see what's happening. So that's, I think, the best way to kind of reach a good audience, a built-in audience that are kind of, they trust the reviewer or they trust the site. Because you can spend so much money on Google ads, Facebook ads, and not be sure who you're reaching. And then if it's like a YouTube ad, they can watch 3 seconds and hit skip, and you don't know. So yeah, I think if you can get the attention of somebody like a Bloody Disgusting, and they can kind of champion you, then you've probably hit the goal the target you want to hit.
Very nice, very nice. So I take it you met most of your crew at some of the same university.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
your composer, and Chris Skoda,
Yep.
your cinematographer.
Yeah, and we've all kind of come about in different ways. Like, I didn't start seriously trying to make my own films until after I graduated, like right after I got a couple of years after I graduated. And so then I would put calls out in the local film office website or social media pages looking for crew. And so a lot of them, yeah, like Soren came from South. He was a music guy, is interested in film too. And then like Skoda, he has a local marketing videography firm now. And then, some of the other folks just kind of came from friends of friends or came from, associations with them. And we've kind of got a nice little network of people now that we can kind of rely on and go to, which is nice.
Very cool. And how would you describe your creative process? Like when you just kind of envision this material and seeing if it can work as a movie you actually want to commit to making?
It's usually something I kind of have to sit with for a while to see if it sticks. It's like, because I'll come up with an idea of something that's like, oh, that's a pretty cool concept, and then I'll kind of think on it and see if there's a way to expand it into something that's more than just a couple of minute, or if there's actually anything that you can put, if it's a skeleton that you can put clothes and skin on to actually make a fully fleshed idea. And sometimes it's just like, it's a cool idea, but I can't like do anything with it. Or other times you like hit the ground running with, that's just a cool idea, and you kind of think on it for 5 minutes, and then you end up with like a 70-page like outline, and then you're like, okay, I'm just going to go write the script now, and it just flows out. But then sometimes it's like pulling teeth, and it really depends on how it hits. Something could trigger me or inspire me. Watching another movie, being like, hey, that kind of gives me a good idea. I can kind of jump off from that, or that kind of solves a problem I was having. So let me look back at this. So it kind of just depends on when the muse strikes, I guess. But yeah, if sometimes I'll have an idea and I'll really like it, and I'll try to make it work, but it just sits on the shelf for months or maybe even years before I'm like, oh, I finally figured that out. Let me go and do that now. Or just, it stays in the bin, and it just never gets more than, like a little log line or something.
Very cool.
I used to have like a whole folder full of that. I don't know what happened to it, but yeah, just like little Post-it notes of scribbles. But yeah.
Very nice, very nice. So you've been able to submit your material to Sarah of Horror, Houston Horror, even Texas Frightmare. Have you ever decided to just kind of say, hey, I'm going to take some time off from day job and just like go and scout out this city and just go in attendance at some of these festivals and network a bit?
Yeah, I would love to be. I've done that on occasion. We'll take like a weekend off, and we went to Spooky Empire a couple of years ago. We're in that again this year. We're not gonna be able to make it to that one, but it was a lot of fun. Like Sidewalk Film Festival, a few others, and it just kind of comes down to notifications, how much advance notice they give you, and if you can get there. Like sometimes we don't know. Like we would go to Spooky this year, but we just got back from a vacation to Orlando like a month ago.
Yeah.
And so it just doesn't make sense, but it's like we would love to go. So yes, in some of these it's like man, if we could get away. And now it's harder with a 3-year-old. But a couple of years ago, Erin, Soren, and I, we were in Comic Palooza in Houston, and we just drove like 7 hours and went over there and spent the weekend and checked it out. And it was a lot of fun, but it's it
adds up after a while.
It adds up. Yeah, it's not really feasible a lot of the times.
No, it's fair. It's also a little annoying sometimes when the festivals tell you last minute, hey, and you're going to be in attendance, right? I'm like, well, does this count me out of the loop if I say no?
Right, exactly. That is kind of a fear. It's like, yeah, I can't make it, but I still want to be eligible for any kind of awards or, or anything like that. And then sometimes when you go, you see the schedule and you realize that your film is scheduled like opposite the Robert Englund Q&A, which everyone's going to be at, and so there's like no one at the films, so it's like, okay, maybe I should have stayed home.
1000%. It gets annoying to even just kind of point out, is like, well, I can make time for this and that, but sometimes the only way you're able to actually meet some of the celebs is at their table, and it's like, well, I do legit want to actually offer you something, but I shouldn't have to buy $50 of merchandise just to speak with you.
Yeah. It's cons are, I mean, they have really exploded. Yeah. It really has changed.
Oh man. And so what was horror always your favorite genre, or was it just whatever cool was on and that was just the one you stuck with?
As a kid, I liked back in the when I was a kid, AMC showed classic movies, actual old B movies during Halloween. They would have, I remember they had this like a
creature features.
Yeah, creature features on the weekends. I remember one was hosted by like Jack Palance. And it was yeah. So I would see like Planet of the Apes. I'd see the original War of the Worlds and all this sort of things, and I loved that. And then USA Network they would have their Up All Night, and then they would also, like, on Saturdays have marathons of pretty much what they showed the night before, like Toxic Avenger, Army of Darkness, stuff like that. Things that I never should have seen when I was like 7, but really, yeah, it's there, so I'm going to watch it. It's like, I know I'm not supposed to be watching this, and so that really kind of opened the doors to that. And then when I was a teenager, I guess I hit my snobbish film period where everything has to be Oscar bait, and horror's just it's crap, and then in college I'm like, this is fun, this is, the other stuff's boring, let's go have some fun. And so it's horror has always been present, horror and sci-fi and fantasy, and only in the last 20 years have I really just kind of really delved into it. But yeah, ever since I was a kid, it was something that was always around.
Very nice. And have there been any collaborations you've been thinking about? I know Christopher R. Meme kind of does a lot of the same kind of stuff that you and Erin do a lot of 50s kind of styled throwbacks.
Not really. Right now, we're honestly just trying to find the time to get anything done. It's yeah, and it's just we have a 3-year-old now, and he's pretty much, he's a handful. So it's we can't just go and shoot something on the weekends now like we used to. It's got this big whole production of who's going to watch him and all this stuff. So it's trying to figure all that out right now. So we're working on some scripts, but we're just trying to figure it all out. I'm sure when he gets a little bit bigger, he'll be on set holding a boom mic for me, though.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Free crew, free experience.
Yeah. It's like, you just hold that there. You hold that reflector there. Be still, be quiet. You're good.
Only thing you had to do.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, and when it came down to scripting, how much time do you give yourself, an outline?
And I don't really give myself like a tight, like a deadline. I kind of just let it kind of go where it takes me. Like, if I have an idea that I really like and it feels like I can do something with, I'll kind of quickly jot down kind of the basics, the outline of where I want it to go and the characters and who they are. And so I'll probably spend a couple of weeks figuring all that out. So that way, when I start writing, I can kind of go by that, have kind of like a little outline of the beats I want to hit and the character development and all this sort of thing. And so, it can go from a few weeks to a couple of months going back and forth on drafts and revisions and that sort of thing. Because I've written something that was like done in a week, and then like right now we're working on doing revisions to a script that we've been working on for, I feel like, a few years now. So it's and just various different variations of it, how it's kind of mutated over time. So yeah, it's just it's its own thing. You kind of, whenever you feel like it's done, it'll tell you. I feel like I've got nothing else I can say on that, and then you can kind of close it and print it out and be done with it. But yeah.
Do you ever kind of like even just pitch an idea and say, okay, perfect, you write it, I'll film it?
I would love to do that. I feel like everybody has their own thing going on.
Always.
So I feel like I feel like I would just kind of like add on to their load if I did that,
No, it's all good.
Yeah, because everyone seems like they have their own things going on too. And I know how it feels whenever someone comes up to you, hey, here's this great idea, you should make this, and you're like, that's cool, but I've got like 12 other things I'm trying to get done too,
Okay,
so it's, yeah.
And what are your do's and don'ts in every set you do? It's like one thing cannot have any of that.
You cannot have any jerks. Everyone's
I know that.
Yeah, everyone's got to be, willing to get their hands dirty, because it's, indie film is just so it is stressful and time consuming, and there's no resources. But you definitely have to have fun. And if it's not fun, it's not really worth doing. If it's a chore for everyone to get up at 5 a.m. to make a early set call or something, then it's not worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
Those late nights out in the woods and the mosquitoes and
Oof.
no restroom for miles around, it's got to be worthwhile. And there have been times when you get into it and you're like, man, this is not quite going the way I want it to go, let's just get it over with, and I hate feeling like that. So I want it to be fun and rewarding.
You don't want the lack of enthusiasm to even show on screen, because there's going to be a tough moment where you got to reset something.
Mm-hmm. And if people behind the scenes aren't feeling it, then probably the people in front of the camera aren't feeling it, and that comes through. It all translates. Yeah.
And when you got a rough, like you say, you got to be up at early morning hours and then shoot for until sundown. What are some other ways to just kind of keep up the flow, make sure the crew is engaged on the same page?
Good communication. Just make sure everyone is aware of what they're supposed to be doing and how to do it. Because sometimes, we're friends of friends who are working on these things, and you're like, okay, you can be the script supervisor. You're like, great, awesome. And then they never ask you. You assume they know what that means, and they never ask you. So it's, you're kind of wasting some time there. And it's so yeah, just making sure everyone knows their role, knows what they're doing, and also wasn't afraid to speak up and offer their 2 cents on something.
Oh yeah. Do you feel like many how do you kind of just weed out just some of the unreliable guys? Like a friend introduces you to someone, you're like, well, I gotta have lunch with them just to see.
Well, usually if someone says, hey, I know this guy who can help out, and if I email them and tell them to show up on such and such a date for an initial meeting and they don't show, or they're late or something, that pretty much seals it. I know we've had times when people that we weren't necessarily relying on for major support, but they were just there to kind of test the waters and see what they can do. They don't show up. They're like, look, I can write them off. I don't have to worry about that going on. So
yeah.
people saying, yeah, I'll be there and I'll do that. That's one thing, but then actually showing up is a whole other thing. So always kind of take it with a grain of salt, you know, like, sure, let's see when you actually are tasked with showing up, are you going to do it? So
1,000%.
yeah.
And when you're coming up with shots, and again, just line producing and schedule, what keeps you going? Because I feel like that's just
Ooh,
thing that
that's tough. What keeps me going is knowing that I have to get it done, or else it's not going to get done, and then we're not going to have a movie, and people are going to be coming to me with questions, and I want everyone to stay informed, so I don't want to let anyone down.
It is very hard. You're always going to have actors who will only know their lines and then ask you a question. I'm like, well, if you read the script.
Yeah, that's always fun. The character
just focus on this persona.
Like, who is this person?
I like it. I'll deal with the criticism on it not matching up with the other actors later. You know.
Yeah.
I'll mess with it in the editing room a bit.
It's so yeah, just the not wanting to let anyone down, and just knowing it has to get done, and there's no one else that's gonna be able to do it. You got to rely on yourself a lot of times.
Nice. Sad but true, you know.
Like, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people relying on you, so you can't slip up.
Yep, it's a thing. Do you ever have others like help do some of the behind the scenes video with you?
Yeah, we've got let's see, so everyone kind of does a little bit. Like Skoda has worked on camera. He brings his guys in, and they're all hanging up lights and doing boom mic. We've got Chris Nelson, who's helped us with like makeup effects and prosthetics and making some props and that sort of thing. So yeah, we just kind of, it's everyone just is kind of game to throw their hat in and give it a shot. And then a lot of those relationships, they're the ones that will come through for you because they showed up the first few times and then they kept coming back, and you can rely on them, and that makes things a little bit easier, knowing that you have someone that you can rely on that will meet the kind of the goals that you set for them.
Stellar. Any other upcoming projects that you want to promote? Backwoods got some good accolades.
Yeah, let's see, that came out in I guess about 2 years ago now. We've been working on a script that's a follow-up to Demon Squad, and we're hoping to maybe do a Kickstarter for that next year. We want to do it right as we can, on a slightly larger budget than what we are accustomed to, because we got a lot of Demon Squad came out in 2019, I think it was, and this summer ended up on MST3K, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we met a lot of people. That was a lot of fun. And we actually, I think there's a little bit of a fan base around that movie that actually genuinely enjoy it. And so we're hoping to kind of be able to further explore those characters because people have been asking for it. So hopefully that'll kind of start coming together next year. We're still working on finalizing the script. It's a little bit different. It's very complicated. So Erin and I are kind of going back and forth on notes now. So that's kind of the big one we're working on. And then we have Evil Head, that is a short film that's been making the rounds on film festivals and is on Troma Now, the Troma Now app. Nice. And will probably be on our YouTube channel later this month for Halloween. But it's not for the kids, but it's very funny. It's ridiculous. It's goofy. It's very goofy fun.
Perfect. And when getting, pacing yourself and, keeping an eye on just all your material that you released, what do you think is like the biggest aspect to it on just kind of just making sure, it's all out there? Obviously, it's already great enough that, we can go to the Fighting Owl webpage and see links to all the material. But when you were just planning this all and you just saw, it's like, okay, I gotta use all available outlets. How did the planning go?
It's changed over the years too. YouTube was always kind of a big outlet for when we were first starting. And then there are some other platforms I feel like that have come and gone that we've kind of dipped our toes in. So that was kind of YouTube was kind of the big thing that we kind of stuck with. And then of course, there's the other social media outlets we kind of used to help promote things. But the distributors we've worked with, they've mostly still used Blu-ray, DVD, and some VOD, kind of depending on where things fell on the timeline. I think Demon Squad was DVD and VOD, and Backwoods was VOD, possibly Blu-ray. Nice. And then I remember Night Shift was just DVD. I mean, that was 10 years ago. So we're kind of at the mercy of what they want to do, whenever they release something. But for ourselves, it's mainly YouTube.
Okay, very nice. Has the Alabama film community been pretty supportive?
Yeah, our local film office has been really helpful. It was kind of daunting when we first started this, and having to reach out that because you get imposter syndrome. You're like, yeah, it's like, well, I mean, they're used to it. They worked on Close Encounters was filmed here back in the day.
Oh, wow.
And we've had a few of like the one-off Nick Cage movies shot here, and a few of those and some others. So they're they kind of know the ins and outs. But whenever we first started, it was kind of a dry spell, I think. And also there's the imposter syndrome where it feels like are they going to take me seriously? Like I'm just this kid, local kid. But I mean, they treat everyone fairly and equally, and they've been super supportive. If you need a casting call or help with locations, they're right there. So that's been super great.
Yeah, I haven't had to avoid too many flakes or unprofessionals.
We haven't really encountered a lot of that.
And that's so unfortunate. I had to deal with them all the time in Dallas.
It's and I think part of that comes down to going back to reusing the same contacts and the same people over and over again. We've kind of built that up, and I think it's a large enough base now that we don't have to rely as much on cattle calls for crew and stuff. So we can just, hey, I know some, so we can kind of take care of it within our group, I think. So that helps. But yeah, I remember there was a time when we first started out, and it's like you get all these emails from people like, I want to audition, I want to be part of the crew, and then you never hear from them again. Or they show up once and realize, man, this is actually hard work.
I have to actually do something. I can't be funny all day.
Yeah, exactly. So
and fortunately enough, you've been interviewed by all kinds of people, including Search My Trash and AI.com. What are some outlets that you recommend for just promotion of everything? I mean, obviously the other websites are good that we mentioned earlier, but like, what are some like MVPs? They're always a great opportunity.
Yeah. Over the years, we've kind of cultivated a list of folks that we kind of reach out to when we're trying to get the word out about our projects. There was a site called Igor's Lab that was always like super helpful and willing to share. I'm not sure if that one's still around, actually. And then like Dread Central.
Good site.
Yeah. Some of those Arrow in the Head and Joe Blow, they shared a lot of stuff. There were also a lot of sites. When you go and look back at some of this, you realize how quickly some of these sites don't stick around.
Yeah, they can't keep up with it.
yeah. So there's so many that there's a few that I know they're not around anymore. So yeah, if you can hit those main ones that are kind of established, I guess, that are foundational to the internet, they're going to be around. You can kind of get them to kind of embrace what you're doing and get what you're doing and help get the word out. That's great.
Okay, for sure. It seemed, and you did bring up some good points on crowdfunding. It seems like that's just the way to go nowadays, instead of asking for investors or doing the elevator pitch. Just save yourself trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent countless hours and read so many books about, how to find investors, how to do this and that. And it's not really that way anymore. Yeah, everyone's going Kickstarter, Indiegogo, GoFundMe's. And I mean, and then the downside to that is you have to have an audience there who's going to jump into that, or you have to be lucky enough to catch one of these big sites' attention that will kind of help you promote it and get the word out. Because otherwise it's, your friends and family that are like, well, here's $5. And
yeah,
that's,
you owe us for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly. So it all has its own pitfalls, but yeah, I don't think anyone's going around doing the Evil Dead route of hitting up the local dentists and doctors anymore.
Oh, God.
I think it's all online. Yeah.
Oh man. And I'm sorry if this sounds like a regurgitation. How do you make sure everyone's like in the zone, like just from when you're communicating on text and email, everything? Well, when I was communicating, for instance, with one guy, and he gave me back all the documents. I gave documents to another guy, and he asked me to send the documents to him again. So that was already an indicator. Is like, dude, where's your head at? I've been sending this to you for a month now, and you're just asking for it again.
You kind of have to trust people to hold up their end of the bargain, to be on their game. But if you see something like that, then that definitely is a red flag that maybe you need to find somebody else, or maybe,
they got to evaluate themselves.
Evaluate themselves.
I told you this is our month. We are filming again. Where you been?
After the first couple of times of that, you're like, okay, I need to find somebody else that's going to fill this role, because you just can't, you can't end up on the day of filming and being like, well, I don't have lead actor A, but I have everyone else, or I don't have camera guy here, but I have everyone else, and you have to call the shoot. Because I've helped friends on their film projects for school or class or whatever, and they'll get everything together and we'll all show up, and then the day of, so and so calls, yeah, I can't make it, and well, he's got the camera, or he's the main actor, and then all of a sudden the director is also playing the lead actor. So it's you have to trust people to do what they're going to do, but you also kind of have to watch their track record, give them one or two chances, and you can't let it snowball.
Totally. What's been your favorite camera to film on so far?
I really like the BlackMagic. We've used that a couple of times, and right now that's kind of my go-to. Although for Evil Head, we shot on the Sony, I think it was the FX9. That was really fun to shoot with. It had like that built-in autofocus and everything, and it was just big camera, and it was just me operating it, and Gray operating it for the weekend shoot. And it was cumbersome and heavy, but it was really fun to play with. But I think BlackMagic's still kind of my favorite.
Totally. And it seems like everyone's getting even more subjective when, much like the phones, they're going to change just about every 3 years. You're going to have to update, or just say, you know what? Maybe I don't want to play around with Final Cut or Adobe. Maybe I can do this third-party software. Maybe I can do this other thing.
Yeah, I basically just stopped buying any of it. Yeah, and just rent it. Cameras, they update so often now. Even if it's just like a slight upgrade. There's like a BlackMagic Pro and then a BlackMagic, regular BlackMagic. There's not that much of a difference, except for a few $1,000s more. So it's just like, I'm just going to rent this instead of buying it. Or if I know someone who has it, I'm just going to pay them to use it and camera operate for me. And as far as, like software and stuff goes, I stick with Final Cut for the most part. And, it's like, I think it was like $200 and then you've got it,
Nice. What are some other ways for when you're renting equipment and you're still, much like a car rental place, they're not taking your word for it? What are other ways to back it up in addition to photos?
I know for us, I've always gone through like lensrentals.com for gear rental.
That's
and they're really great. They'll ship it out to you. You get it, when you need it, and you just ship it back, put it back in the same box and everything. You get the return shipping label. And, I don't think there's like a deposit on any of that unless it's above a certain level, but you can get their insurance to cover everything. And it's just been great. I remember one time we accidentally ordered the wrong lens, and we were doing a test, and then we needed the correct lens the next day. And I was on the phone with him, like, yeah, we'll get it out to you, no problem. And showed up on time and saved the shoot for that weekend.
Man.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't say enough nice things about them, but they're kind of my go-to.
Very badass. And it kind of just opens it up. It's like when you realize, like, I don't need a new gear, I don't need a new camera, I just need a different lens.
Yeah, especially, I mean, when you look at going to buy some of this, it's like someone will say, yeah, the BlackMagic's only $1,200-$1,300, but you need the mounts for mic or batteries or lights or any of that. Yeah, recharge station, all of that, and it adds up to be so much more. And it's like, yeah, I could just rent all this for a couple $100, and that's all I needed for. And then in a few months, when I'm shooting something again, I'll go and rent the new version that's out, and just keep everything top of the line. And I'm not paying an arm and a leg for it and stuck with it for, however long. I don't get how some of these folks, they go and they buy these really expensive rigs, and then, a year or two later, there's a new version out and they're buying that one too. Like that. How are you doing that? That does not make any sense to me.
They either love it too much or something.
Yeah.
Now, altogether, what are you planning currently that is like a must do, like in the next 5 years? You're just like, hey, this idea, we came up with this idea, we got to try this out, we know the perfect place to film it.
Yeah, I've got a couple of those. I've got a Mardi Gras short that I want to get done in the next year or so. Mardi Gras centered short. So, and Mobile is the birthplace of Mardi Gras. New Orleans gets all the attention, but so we have the parades and floats and all that stuff here. So I think it'd be a really cool backdrop for this short, and really fun. So that's a big one I want to get done. And then this Demon Squad sequel is actually based on a script we've been trying to get done for about a decade now. It started off as its own thing, and it's morphed over the years, and we've changed out the characters and a few plot points. And I think it's a really unique kind of haunted house story that I really want to get done. And it sounds simple on the outset, but it gets really complicated to shoot.
Any good mansions in your area that'd be a perfect haunted house?
That's kind of what I've been spending my free time searching on locations and film site website, and just kind of Googling some event halls and that sort of thing. There are some nice ones. There are some nice
friend
places.
Who has a relative's house that they'll gladly let you use.
Yeah, it's like I need a creepy house. I just and there are a few of those downtown. These old historic mansions. So they're great. So that's kind of like the main ones. And I'm kind of toying around with like a pseudo sequel to Evil Head that's set in the same universe, but different characters, but just as goofy. So that's sort of, and then the rest, we're just kind of playing it by ear. You never know when something's going to come up that's like, hey, I got to do that now. So we'll see.
Very nice. So what's been the most like receptive online festival, like where they will actually give their 2 cents confirming, hey, you made it, you're going to be judged, because it seems like there's still a few others that are better at receiving it and saying, hey, we'll consider it, but can you upload it in a 1080 versus this format?
Going through Film Freeway, they kind of have everything standardized. So if you submit through them, or if the festival's on there and you can submit through them, that kind of gives them a dashboard for getting the file that they need and getting the promotional materials that they need. Right now, I'm really impressed with this year's Spooky Empire selections. They've been super communicative. They've got their awards nominations out already. They've been announcing panels and full schedules and all that. So I've been really impressed with what they've done so far this year. So right now, I think that's kind of my favorite as far as communication wise,
and when you're doing a shorts, you're actually getting feedback, as opposed to the 48-hour thing where, hey, we had free time, but we didn't really use it.
And we haven't actually gotten a lot of feedback from the festivals themselves outside of when they give you the acceptance email. You might be in communication with the director, and they'll say they really enjoyed the film. It was one of their favorites or something like that. And that's about as far as that goes. Sometimes some festivals, they'll let you pay an additional fee for feedback and notes. I've never done that. But then when we can, I prefer to kind of attend the festival to see the audience reaction when we can, or if someone else goes that we know, kind of ask them how things went. I think seeing how something goes over with the audience is the best kind of barometer for how it sits with everyone. So yeah, if we can go, if we know someone who can go and kind of report back, that's kind of the best feedback as far as I'm concerned.
Totally. In the night shift, what I really love the most is when you're by the cemetery, you just get so many just Night of the Living Dead vibes, and sort of just the love you're putting into the craft. What are your favorite kinds of establishing shots to kind of do, like, that you recommend everyone try?
In that cemetery, there wasn't a bad angles. Everything was really pretty.
Stood out.
Yeah, it's like there. I know sometimes we were just sitting around waiting for the sun to set so we could start shooting, and it was just looking out, and it was just really pretty. Oddly enough, that cemetery was incredibly peaceful and enjoyable to just kind of hang out at. It was weird, but yeah, it was one of my favorite places to be. And so as far as establishing shots go, I kind of hate establishing shots. I never know exactly what.
No, I know what you mean. It is
the
tricky.
best way. It's like you don't want it to be, here's the sitcom shot of Seinfeld's apartment, So it's always like, what is it going to be?
And then it becomes a filler shot for the next 5 episodes.
Exactly. And so for Demon Squad, we had a lot of establishing shots of the city, some drone shots of the city. And looking back, I'm like, maybe we kind of overdid that. But at the time, it was because we shot it in 2015, it was like drones were just exploding, and it was like, this is going to be awesome. And now everyone has drone shots. So and I've learned recently, or I've embraced it recently, that you don't necessarily need a ton of establishing shots. So kind of going forward, I'm probably going to be cutting back on a lot of those if they're not integral. Audiences have gotten a lot savvier, so you don't need those. Here's the apartment shot.
The most amazing shot ever made. Took us 5 days.
So it's like, and they're always a little awkward. Sometimes you need them for spacing. Sometimes it's just kind of there to pad things out. So it's definitely something we're going to be moving away from, I think.
So you've laid it out. You pretty much have kept it simple. You've stuck with Reynolds. You've had a positive influence and feedback from your various collaborators, and your creative space has been rarely compromised. Have you thought of even doing a web series, given how YouTube's allowed a lot of input on sharing your material?
Yeah, I felt like for a little while there, for like 5 minutes, everyone was trying to do a web series. And I think that's kind of died down now. But
They
I've been
realized
thinking about
Google wouldn't share the profits, so you got to just do it just because you want more material.
exactly. So it's something that I've kind of been thinking about on kind of off and on. Like, if we can't do a feature of this, that maybe it'll work as a web series, or maybe we could do some one-off adventures with these characters. May not necessarily have to tie together to be some kind of overarching storyline, but just kind of like, here's a little 15-20 minute installment. It's something that's kind of at the back of my mind, but it's definitely worth exploring at some point.
A lot of your cast have a great theater background. I remember the lead in Night Shift. I think he had a San Antonio background. Small world. But have you guys even thought of doing an audio drama?
I actually had not thought of that. And that would be something that would be kind of interesting to do. I'd kind of thought maybe at some point, could possibly do like a comic book or a graphic novel or something.
Your son does the animation, you do the directing and the
Yeah.
voiceovers.
But yeah, no, I think an audio story, kind of do like an old time radio show. I think that would be kind of fun.
This is Thomas Smith as Vincent Price II.
Yes. I would be so out of my depth. I would not. I would have to let someone else kind of oversee the whole thing to make sure it's done right. But I think that would be a lot of fun.
Oh, for sure.
Somebody who's like a big radio buff, be like, here's what I want to do. You make it fit within that mold.
Radio is still pretty powerful. I'm really surprised. I will hear about stuff. I'm like, whoa, I haven't seen a single TV ad for that. But then again, I haven't been watching live TV. I've been recording it the last 2 months, and so it seems like it provides so much closure. But they don't seem to really talk about as many indie films, like unless you pay for that extra amount. It's like, hey, we're at the Angelica in our town this week. Can you please play this ad 5 times?
Yeah, that is something like Spotify. It's like, okay, I'm very well aware that Peacock paid a lot of money for this ad that I'm hearing, 5 times in this 30-minute podcast.
Peacock.
Yeah. So that's definitely something that I think would be a lot of fun. And then there are podcasts that are kind of embracing that and that are really good. Some of the creepypasta ones, like the No Sleep podcast and some of those.
Yes.
So it's there's definitely an audience for that sort of thing.
It's out there. I've been actually figuring out Dramify. They allow anything as long as it's not like R-rated equivalent. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
There's a starting point.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Recommend. Well, this has been great. I love this magnetic just confidence that's echoing off the screen. So great to do this chat with you for an hour. Any other plugs that you or your colleagues are also
nothing that I can think of right now. We're just the past 2 years have been rough on everybody trying to get back to some level of normalcy and reset and kind of get caught up. So I think we're kind of in that. And hopefully next year we can kind of hit the ground running again, get things figured out and get past this little bump. And I think, I think 2023 will probably be a little bit busier than this year and last year. But so just kind of keep an eye out on our socials for what's going on.
Any other movies or music or shows that you saw lately that you 100% recommend?
I love Chucky. I love the Chucky series. Yeah. The second season just started back, and it's only been 1 episode so far, but I love it. And the first season was just such a joy to watch. And then we just finished the run of Kevin Can F Himself, which is really good. It's so good.
Did you see that hysterical article where it was like a angry Christian Maha wrote in?
No.
How dare there be a curse word in there? I'm like, it's censored, for God's sakes.
I did not see that. No, that's like, ridiculous.
She hasn't even seen it, so she doesn't even know. It's the first rule of satire. Don't complain if you don't even know what the joke's about.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I mean, what was it like? 10 years ago, Shatner had that sitcom. Stuff My Dad Says, and it was all censored, and no one cared then. So it's amazing what they decide to pick up on and when. But yeah, those are kind of. And I would definitely recommend going back on Netflix and watching Brand New Cherry Flavor. It came out last year.
Yeah,
but it's fantastic. It's so weird.
Fair enough. It is.
Yeah,
it's very odd. Oh, are you going to be collecting action figures again, especially with your kids?
I've picked up. What was the last one I picked up? I picked up a Toonie Terror of Herbert West from Reanimator not too long ago.
Oh, awesome!
And I think that was the last one I got. I got that, and I got a Sam from Trick or Treat. I haven't seen any recent. I'm looking around right now to see what
movie Maniacs toys are like. Bonkers expensive now than where they were.
Yeah, that's kind of been my drawback. It's like I remember when I first started kind of getting into this stuff. It was like $15-$20. Okay, sure. And now it's like $40 for a figure, and I can't justify that. It's like I really want that Halloween 2018 Laurie Strode figure. Like I can't pay $45 for a figure. Right. So
I want one of the Wishmaster and Candyman still, I'm like, yeah, no, I was feeling it 5 years ago. Jokingly,
yeah, it's gotten so expensive. I've got one of the original Movie Maniacs of Snake Plissken. I remember getting that from Toys R Us for like $9.99. So, and that was like late '90s. It's just inflation, I guess.
Oh man, it's something else sometimes.
Yeah, no, if I see something at like a con or something and I haven't like really seen it before, I'll definitely go ahead and get it because I know I'm like I'm not gonna run across it again probably. But if it's something at the store, I'll probably I'll wait until I'll see if Target drops it on clearance or something. Yeah.
Hoping for the best.
Yeah, hoping for the best. You never know.
Well, this has been a delight, my dude, and thank you ever so much for taking an hour to do this.
Oh no, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
See, I wish so many others could have your experience, because it seems like so many others are just like, now that everyone's been cutting back and ITN's been getting more picky, they're just like, oh, what do I do? I'm shitting my pants. What do I do? It's like, well, you should always have backup plans. B through F,
Yeah. But yeah, no, I really appreciate you taking the time. It's been really, really enjoyable, really fun.
Welcoming. And I wish the best. I hope it continues to grow there, because I just see so many other industries which were kind of getting fender benders. There were others that were just really making a stink, and it was before they even got into the social and political disruption chats. And it's like, you guys, you have way too much free time. Does anyone ever monitor your social media? Because you got to take a time off and just post a casting call and then just leave it at that, instead of just bickering back and forth. If there is an inevitable filmmaker maybe deciding to be an asshole and posting a very lame retort, you can just block them and just move on.
Yeah. The bad thing about social media, if you have to monitor it yourself like we do, I usually just let things go. It's like make a post, kind of check on the comments, get a notification.
That's unprofessional.
It's okay. Like I'm not going to engage. I'm not engaging.
Yeah. People 1 for 9, not working for.
Yep.
That guy, he responded, I'm working with it.
We'll return after these messages.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win Show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
We let things pile up in the DVR, we add them to our queues, we wait for the DVDs and Blu-rays. We time shift. The Time Shifters Podcast. Sci-fi, horror, fantasy, superheroes, comedy, action, film, television, maybe some not-so-current events. Find us on iTunes or at timeshifterspodcast.com.
Cool thing about Blind Knowledge is we are in multiple countries. We are worldwide all across the globe. We are in the US, we are in the UK, we are in Canada, Germany, India, Japan. We're in Australia, y'all. BlindKnowledge.com. Now back to the feature presentation.
Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, Naruto, all things that we love, all manga that were originally published in the legendary magazine Weekly Shonen Jump.
But not every series can run for 300 chapters and have a hit anime. This is David.
This is Jordan.
We're the hosts of Shonen Flop. Each episode we look at manga that ran in Jump that didn't quite make it.
We discuss what it did wrong, what it did right, how the series could have turned itself around, and ultimately, was it a flop or not?
We're on all your favorite podcast apps, and you can find us at shonenflop.com.
Keep on flopping, floppers.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a Jack